Audra.
Someone in the kitchen, I know. Someone's in the kitchen with my
Audra.
playing on an old banjo.
You haven't had full editing powers.
Okay, ready? Okay, today we're going to do a Korean kimchi, and we're going to do it with napa cabbage. I have some that's left over. It's still good, so I'm going to throw that in there, but I have a whole fresh head here and another half. So what we need are the napa cabbage. You can do one head, is good. You're going to need garlic, ginger, fish sauce. I like Vietnamese or Thai fish sauce. They have the best flavor. You'll need kosher salt, dried red pepper powder. I also bought this at the Korean market. And some sugar. So what we're going to start out doing is chopping the cabbage. This was a project that takes a few days because the first thing is that the cabbage has to sit in a saltwater bath for 24 hours before you can put the rest of the ingredients together. So what I'm going to do is just slice this so that it's in, bite-sized pieces for us when we do the. And I'm going to need a bigger bowl, but you get the idea here. And just cut the base off. That's the only part we won't use. And we will edit away, and when I come back, you'll see a bigger or separate bowl. And you see that I didn't clean it off. I'm gonna salt it. Once it's done salting, I'll rinse it very well with cold water, and it'll get all the bits out of there, as well as the excess salt. Okay. Got myself a bigger bowl. I'm doing a double batch because I have a friend coming over and she's going to take some home with her. So I'm going to take the kosher salt and half a cup measure, but I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup in this bowl, and then half a cup, and maybe a little less than half a cup in that bowl. And so you just want to toss it to get the salt distributed onto the cabbage. And if you have any chunks in there, break those up. Chunks of salt. It's humid in Dayton, Ohio. So, okay, whoops. And you lose a couple pieces. And we'll do this one. And to finish this, the next step is to just add water. Get my dirty pot out of the sink. And we're going to fill this so that it covers all the cabbage. And I might be able to get all of it into this bowl. It'll be easier to get into the refrigerator. I think so. So I have 2 heads of napa cabbage in here and a little more than a cup of salt. Now this is pretty well full. I will turn the cabbage after a few hours here to make sure that the stuff at the top gets its time in the salt water. So at this point, I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap and just set it on the counter side for 24 hours. So tomorrow we'll come back and we'll put the rest of the ingredients together. Okay, so we're going to do our spice mix, and we're doubling this recipe. So I did 2 heads of napa cabbage, and so I'm going to do 2 decent chunks of ginger here, and I'm going to peel it, and I like to use a spoon.
It's about a golf ball size chunk, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I just took a chunk of knob off of there. Using a spoon takes just the skin off, so you don't waste much of the actual ginger that you want. Very easy. Best way to peel ginger. Right here. And then I'll just cut off the end. And little bits of brown spots. Okay, and so I'm just going to cut this into smaller chunks, and I'm going to, instead of chopping it, I'm going to put it into the into a little mini food processor here. So actually, start over. So instead of chopping, I'm just going to do this in a mini food processor. It'll be a little bit easier. Actually, a lot easier. If you don't have a food processor, just mince it as finely as you can. Alright. I'll go ahead and just scrape that into a bowl, and I'm going to do the same thing with the garlic, because we want a finely minced garlic, and this is just going to be easier using this machine. And if there are some big chunks in there, I'm going to go ahead and pull those out.
That smells good.
It does smell good. I love ginger. One of my favorites.
They smell real good.
So I'm just going to get the big pieces out, just so you don't get any big chunks in your bites in your kimchi. That looks pretty good. And then we'll get our garlic. My hands are wet. And so for one if you're just making, I'm doubling this recipe for a single recipe, you'll want to use maybe 4 regular cloves of garlic. These are really big, so I'm going to use these here. This is whole head. I love garlic. And I'm not going to, just going to cut the hard ends off, and then I'll peel it and throw it into the food processor. Alright, so once you've got your garlic cloves peeled, I've got 8 really big garlic cloves in here. So I'm just going to throw these in the hoops. in the processor. Alright, easy peasy. Okay. So there we've got our garlic and our ginger. And we will get the cabbage ready. This has been sitting in the salty water since yesterday.
24 hours.
And so I'm going to drain this. I'm going to put it back in the bowl and I'm going to rinse it several times. So we'll let that fill up and let that rinse several times here to get the excess salt off and whatever dirt that was in there when we cut it. Okay, so I rinsed this very well 3 times. And so I'm going to strain it one last time here into the colander. And we'll just leave that to drain while we get the rest of the ingredients together. And I'm going to go ahead and use this same bowl to mix it all up in. So coming back over here, we are going to put our ginger and our garlic into the bowl. And rinse my spoon off. Okay, we're going to use our dried chilies. Actually, I have some in a jar. I showed you before. These are just dried, crushed red chilies. So in a single portion or a single recipe, you'll use a ½ cup for the 1 head of napa, and since I have 2, I'm going to go ahead and use 1 cup. And I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons of sugar. For 1 recipe, you use 2. And then our fish sauce. Oops. And for 1 recipe, you'll use ½ cup. But since we're doubling it, we're going to use a whole cup. This is Vietnamese fish sauce I got at the Asian food store. Excellent quality. Okay, so there's our cup of fish sauce, and we'll go ahead and pour that on in, and we'll just give everything a good stir. Well, there are variations on this. You can also add green onions, the whites and the pale green parts you can cut into, maybe 1.5 inch, 2-inch pieces. That can be done with the cabbage as well. You can also do a mix of napa with daikon radish, or you can do bok choy. Those are the two. Bok choy and napa, I think, are the best to make kimchi because they're sturdy, I guess. Alright, so we're going to mix everything up together here and make sure that all the cabbage gets coated with the spice mixture that we've made. In fact, this might be easier to do with your hands. But since there's chilies in there and the salt and the fish sauce, if you have any cuts on your finger, you might want to wear gloves because it'll burn. This smells awesome already. Looks beautiful. Get that in there really well. That looks fantastic. Make sure that all gets incorporated. Alright, looks good. Okay, rinse my hands off. So the next step is to put this in jars. And I have one big jar. So I'll go ahead again and use my hands and just pack this in here. It's not pretty, but use glass. It's the best. It won't contaminate the kimchi with any flavor like plastic might. And again, you might get the flavor of plastic in your food, but then you also get the flavor of your food stained in, or into your plastic. So, and metal, you don't want to have any reactions because we're going to ferment this. So that's pretty full. And that's my big jar, and I got another jar here that I'm going to pack.
So you want to leave a little room at the top? You don't want to pack it all the way to the top, am I correct?
You can pack it to the top. I'm just making sure that I have enough to fill both of these pretty well. I'm going to see how it goes here. I'm going to pack it in as much as I can. You want to pack it in tight. So you can pack it almost to the top.
Okay.
And this is perfect. There. So that fit perfectly into, what is that, 2 heads of napa. It's about 3 quarts packed here. And we'll go ahead and pour that extra deliciousness onto the top there. There's goodness in there. Alright, let me rinse my hands off. So we'll clean this up. Once I get the lid on it, I'll rinse it under water. So put your lid on tightly, and what you're going to do next is leave this out on the counter for 24 to 48 hours. 24 is fine. You want to leave it in a rather warm, dark spot on the counter. Don't forget about it though. As the pressure builds up inside, as inside the jar as it ferments, it's going to create some pressure on the top. So you want to check it, I don't know, every 4 or so hours, or at least 8 hours, and release some of the air so that your lid doesn't burst. So I'm just going to set this aside over here, and I will show you the finished product. After you've let that sit on the counter for 24 hours fermenting, you want to refrigerate your kimchi for a few days.
I mean, for a few days.
I would say 2 or 3. You could go up to 5 or a week to get really good flavor. This one I made last week. This is the Napa kimchi, and so that's been in the refrigerator. That is ready to eat. And then this is the daikon radish kimchi that I also did. Same recipe, except it uses daikon radish, and I'll put a picture of that in there so you can see what it looks like. And so this is also ready to eat. This has been in there for a good week, and so that's what your product will look like when you're done. Kimchi, easy, delicious.
Get some.
Make some.
Yum. And it's let's talk about the probiotic nature of kimchi.
Okay. Well,
Why it's good for you. It has pro-organisms that are pro-human.
when you have any product that's fermented, you have living organisms, living bacteria in that product that is the result of the fermenting product or process. So probiotics, as they're called, are healthy, good bacteria that live in our gut that help, keep our immune system strong, help us be regular and deal with indigestion issues. So it's very good for you. Yogurt has live bacteria in it. That's the probiotics. Active cultures, when you buy yogurt that have active cultures in it, that's what they're talking about. Kimchi, sauerkraut, things that are fermented. Soy, there are lots of fermented soy products that also have these ingredients in them. So very good for you. So make kimchi, make your belly happy.
Make kimchi, get healthy.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha, hee hee hee.
Yes.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.